This episode is brought to you by Tina's Vodka.
I am Latasha Causey, the president of Phoenix Raceway, and this is Her Table.
Now you see her.
You are magnificent!
Welcome to Her Table, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the badass women who are redefining the game. Join hosts Kate Foley and Megan Martinez as they unlock the secrets of success from the brightest female pioneers in the industry.
Welcome back to another episode of Her Table. You have no idea, Megan, how excited I am to welcome our next guest to the show. Today we have one of the best energy, best vibe people I've met in my life, Latasha Causey, joining us on set in California. Latasha is the new track president at Phoenix Raceway, and she is the first ever African-American track president in NASCAR history and the second woman in history of NASCAR to hold that title.
I'm so excited to have her on. You've been talking about her for months, so can't wait to meet her. Latasha has had a number of accolades, including being named one of the most influential women in Arizona by AZ Big Media. And in 2018, the Phoenix Business Journal honored her as part of the Most Outstanding Woman in Business Awards.
Latasha is big on giving back to the community. She does motivational speaking. She's invested in all kinds of boards. She sits on like 2-3 of them. I don't know how she has enough time in the day. She's a mom, but she's also killing it and raising the bar in the game of sports. I can't wait for our listeners to learn more about Latasha's story and how she has found success in the sports world. Let's get to it. Latasha, pull up a chair. This is it at Her Table. Thanks so much for coming on all the way from Phoenix.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you guys.
Okay, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
25 again.
I love it. That's what we say. I'm like, what age do you want to be stuck on?
20, you know, I say 25, but like, what? I didn't know anything at 25.
I was poor at 25.
Broke.
I had not a good job.
Yeah.
I was just figuring it out.
Yeah,
I'm more like a 29er, I think.
I'm with you. I'm more like I feel like a 30,
Yeah.
31,
Yeah.
right? I was
Yeah.
doing something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, then you're like, I'm
So not
kind
the
of there.
20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. I
Good to know.
I already had kids at that point, but that's not the point. The point is I felt like I was more responsible.
I was in a better, more solid, stable place.
Solid, stable place.
Yeah, it's fine. 25, you're like,
Yeah, 25, you're like, not really sure.
Yeah. She's like, can we do that again? 25.
Yeah.
No, what would be your favorite year of your life? That's a great question.
That is a good question. You know, every year comes with like something, right? I mean, I was 25 when I got married, so that's a great time.
Okay.
That's a great year.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like every time you turn like a 30, and then, I turned 40 a few years ago, and I just feel like all of those years are like I feel something. I'm telling you though, when you turn 40 years old, like
What happens?
I'm one of those chicks that like, I mean, obviously I'm sitting here with you guys, right? And our A-type personalities, but we just get stuff done, right? We're bosses. But I'm telling you, I just don't give a F about a lot of things after 40.
My bucks went out the window. She's fresh out of them.
I've been out of them for a few years.
We're going to name that the like zero fucks 40.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But you just feel so good about it though too. You're just like, I don't really give a fuck. Like you're mad and I'm not. So
Yeah, that's a you and not me.
That's a you and not me
I
problem.
also feel like I get to a place where I'm like, I probably lived half my life. I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was like a little scary, but then I was like, okay, well, enough with like the nonsense.
Yeah, because to be honest, we don't know, right? Like we're all on borrowed time, right?
Borrowed time.
And we don't know. We could have lived half our life. We could have lived our full life. I mean, who knows, right? Like,
or I might be alive till I'm 105, hating life for a long ass time.
Who knows? You might be 105 and like still doing something.
Heck yeah.
No, give me
Technology
the pillow.
these days, maybe you'll be 130.
I'll be a robot.
Kate would do it.
You better be careful. Yeah, if it can be done,
gonna be
I will
Kate.
do it. I will find. I'm gonna be that like the Kris Jenner had that like she had that hologram of herself. You better be careful. Megan's gonna come in her house and be like, Kate's here, and be like, oh yes, you can't get rid of me. I just keep
always
popping up everywhere.
Like I'm not going anywhere.
It's like, leave me alone, hiding in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Well, I'm so glad you're on.
I'm so glad to be here with you guys. Seriously, I bet of course, been watching all of your shows, all the things. I'm like, I can't wait for this.
Oh, well, welcome to our beautiful set.
Yeah.
I love the set. Love the set.
It.
Love the pink. Love all the things.
All
right?
the things.
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting there slowly.
Yeah, I love
slowly. It's so funny. We started the show and I had no idea how what would go into it.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, sure, we're just gonna sit down and talk. But then it just becomes like this whole thing that's morphed into like a lifestyle and a culture. But it's even cool too because so many of our guests are like finding, meeting, or learning from people they never would have come across before.
That's exactly right.
Fantastically. And that happened with one of our guests the other week in Julie Giese, who is one of your little besties.
Yes, I love me some JG. That's my girl.
JG.
if not for Julie, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be at NASCAR and would not be in the position that I'm in today. So I'm so grateful to have Julie in my life. And I saw that she was on this show. And
She was.
she's just an amazing human being.
Although she was annoying because she was like, I run to reduce stress. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're special because that's not me.
Julie is very special, and that's what she does. So,
I'm like,
I mean, but here's the thing, though. Also, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but Julie walks to work every day.
No,
so,
She's about to leave that. Tell us
So
that.
she didn't tell you that part, but like in the winter, I mean, it doesn't matter.
that's
How
true.
far-
Sure.
In Chicago?
in Chicago, right?
Jeez, oh
So she
my.
walks every day, and like all the time, I'm like, that every day you walk every day. So she does. She
there
walks
and back. Wow.
to and from work. Yeah, so she's like, she gets some serious exercise every day in
Oh my
the
God.
winter, summer, all of the things.
Wow, that is
Yes,
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, she's like, I run to reduce anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're super cool. And I feel super inadequate because I just sit and drink when I have anxiety.
I mean, that's what.
But to each their own.
Yeah.
To each their own, Julie. Remind me when I have anxiety, I'm not calling you to dig me out of the hole because what you're going to make me do, I'm not going to want to do and it's not going to save me. It's going to
That's
make
right.
me crazy pants.
Yeah, I love it.
A minute. Okay, so you've had a couple pivots in your career.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of walk our listeners through where you started to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so here's the funny thing. So I born and raised in Phoenix, right? So Phoenix native are like unicorns, right? We don't really exist.
There's not that many people.
There really isn't.
Transplants. Like I'm
Yeah.
a transplant.
Yeah, most people.
Do you get like a special prize for that? I think you should petition for
I
it.
mean, I feel like I should, right? Like, and the fact that I'm still there now, I've produced other little humans that are from Arizona as
You're
well. So
contributing.
I'm generational, right? So I just feel like there should be a prize.
It's a fast pass lane.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
an easy fast pass
It's a
lane.
fast
Yeah,
pass.
fast pass lane.
Yeah, that's what I feel like we deserve in Arizona, right? But yeah, so born and raised there, and so here's the funny thing of when I started my career. So when I was in high school, there was like one thing that like my parents would not pay for, right? Like just one thing. It was fake fingernails, and so I would like always I always love to get my nails. Like that's my thing, right? Like we're girls, right?
Yeah.
Like I just gotta make sure you maintain certain things, right?
Yeah.
My nails are one of them.
Yeah.
So there was this opportunity at school, like they were gonna hire 4 kids to work at Charles Schwab. And so I was fortunate enough to be like one of those 4 kids. And like 3 kids were going to go work as stockbrokers and then 1 like in people services. And I'm like, well, I'll take option B. I don't even know at 16 what people services is, but I definitely knew what a stockbroker was. And I was like, I'm not doing that, right? I don't want to do that. Whatever that is, it's just too, it sounds too, math, all the math is not going to math for me. I'm sorry to that.
Charles Schwab,
Yeah.
and she's like, I don't want the like math
No.
side.
Yeah.
The people side
Yeah.
are good. Math side, no.
The people will, yes. So I was, again, fortunate enough to get the job. I was making $6.50 an hour. And I mean, I was rich, right? Like, you could not tell me anything, right? I had this job at Schwab. And then, honestly, I was working there. And then by the time I was 18, I was hired on full time. And I was also getting ready to go to college. And so I was like, well, now I'm making $7.50 an hour. So I'm really rich. But in those 2 years, I also started to learn, when you're at Schwab, I mean, you learn about investments, you just learn about so many things. And so I started learning about saving for your retirement, started learning about, investing in real estate, all this stuff. So, these hardcore girls, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to be retired by the time I'm 25. I'm going to own like a house or 5 by the time I'm like 20. So I had all these ideas and all these visions of things I was going to do. So that's how I started my career, honestly, as at Schwab. So it's all through my undergrad. So I worked there for almost 7 years at a whole bright 16 years old, finished college. And also at Schwab is when I learned about tuition reimbursement and all those types of things. things to really try to get you to like save your money and just do things the right way in terms of finances. So that's how, again, I got started. And then from there, my career just kind of took off. I mean, worked full time, went to school full time, did graduate in 4 years, even though I was trying to figure it all, balance it all out. And then I stayed, if you will, in the financial services industry, worked for a couple of organizations doing human resources. So I stayed in that people services translates to human resources.
Okay.
That's really what it is.
Okay.
So I worked a majority of my career at USAA. For almost 14 years. And that's where I met Julie, was when I was at USAA. So Julie and I were on a women's panel together for the Phoenix Business Journal. So Ray Shea from the Business Journal, he calls and he's like, hey, there's a woman, she just moved here from Daytona. She had been here for like 3 days, right? He's like, she needs other women, like women like you. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay, Ray. But she needs other women like you to be connected with in the community. And I'm like, of course, as long as she's a good person, I'd be happy to help her and, do whatever I can to help her get connected. And that is how I met Julie. We became quick friends. She's an amazing human being. I was making connections for her. She's like, you're doing all these connections. You have to come to a NASCAR race. And honestly, Phoenix Raceway, essentially, my parents still live in the same house I was born and raised in.
That's so cool.
And the raceway is maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 now with all the extra stuff right in between from my parents' house. And I'd never been until I met Julie.
So you lived next to Phoenix Raceway?
Yes.
Your whole life?
My whole life.
Wow. And you never went until you were...
I was... So let me see, that was 5 years ago, so I wasn't 40 yet. But I was
she hadn't reached that level yet.
I hadn't reached I don't give a fuck level yet. But,
it's like on Super Mario Brothers where you like go to the stop and then you go to the next stop and you go to the next stop.
Yeah. So I was in my late 30s, and because of Julie is why I even went to my first NASCAR race. But obviously, as you know, it is such a cool experience, and of course, getting it the presidential way from Julie, I'm like, this is really cool. I want to continue to help and support you any way I can. And I did that for the 4 years that she was there, and then she called. So this true story here. We if you will, call it like a Thursday night, right? So Julie, we became really good friends. We would have girl time, right? And so Julie was at my house like the Thursday before. We probably were having like tequila or something. I don't know. Like tequila night, maybe wine. I don't know. But whatever it was, we were having
girls' night.
We were having girls' night at the house, right? And on Monday morning, like I get the Business Journal that says Julie is moving to Chicago. And I'm like, WTF? Like she didn't even say anything, but of course she couldn't because there's, we all know how this works, right?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, okay, hold on. Low-key, she could have been like, hey, if you have a question, call me because it might be a little interesting on Monday morning when you get your paper, not just like a badao on your paper.
It's so funny though because she kept saying like, she always travels a ton though. I mean, that's just how NASCAR works. And but she's been spending a ton of time in Chicago, but it wasn't announced that they were doing that we were doing a street race in Chicago. None of that it wasn't public information at the time. Right. And so and Julie diehard.
Yeah, she's like a rule follower too.
Yes, but also just diehard. NASCAR has been her career, and so she will do anything for NASCAR. And so, honestly, so then on Monday, as I'm reading this, I'm getting a phone call from Julie, right? And I'm like, girl.
Is there a camera in here that you can see that I've just now connected the dots and we're going to make this real or what?
Yeah. And so I'm like, what is it? And so she's like, okay, we don't have time to talk about that right now. What I want to talk to you about is what do you think about taking on as the president of Phoenix Raceway? And I'm like, what, like really? And honestly, it took me, it took a little while, right? Yeah. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, I'm Black, right? And so she's like, obviously.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah. But there's also just this, the direction of, where NASCAR is going and all those things, and being a community person and all the things that we, do and have done over the last year and a half. Julie left Phoenix Raceway in a phenomenal spot. So it wasn't an overnight yes. It took some time for them to convince me to come over. I was interviewing them just as much as they were interviewing me.
Explain to us why. Because this is important. I know this story, but this is so important.
I mean, it's important for a few reasons. One, I wanted to make sure it was a right fit for me and for NASCAR, right? I mean, it's important for me to be able to authentically show up as who I am every day. And so are you really hiring me because you want to hire me for my skill set, or are you hiring me because I'm about to be a history maker and I'm a token, right, that's going to be here to do that? And if that's the case, if option B is the case, I won't be here, right? Like I'm not that, I don't want to be that person. So if I'm able to come in and actually do what I know I can do, then sign me up. And honestly, I know Julie and I trust Julie, so I knew that I wasn't going to be the token, but really having conversations with Steve Phelps, our CEO, he is the one that put me, if you will, over the edge of accepting the opportunity. I asked the hardest asked questions, right? Like all of them.
What did you ask? I want to know.
Yeah.
He's here today. What did you ask?
Yeah. So many.
So exciting.
So many things, right? It was starting with just that, right? I will be the first Black woman to run a track in NASCAR's 75-year history. Walk me through like what that looks like, and how do you see diversity? Is it because it's just for diversity, right? What does diversity look like to you, right? And when I start in this role, and if our fan base says like, oh, we don't want to accept Latasha because of who she is, what do you say to that, right? And I mean,
That's such a powerful question, though.
Well, all of his responses were so phenomenal, but the thing with Steve is it's all about action. So Steve has been one of my largest supporters since I have started at the Raceway. I mean, we had our luncheon last year. Steve was there. I put him in the hot seat again in a fireside chat, and it really wasn't a hot seat for him. I mean, he had the conversation, the George Floyd conversation, where NASCAR has been, where NASCAR is going, talked about the Confederate flag, like talked about all of those things authentically as who he is. And that is what got me there, because it isn't just about talk. It truly is about like, hey, how do we open this up, because there is a place and a space for all of us within NASCAR, because it's a phenomenal sport. It is so fun going out there and having a good time. So.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, something you said earlier really resonated, right? Like NASCAR predominantly is not a multicultural sport, predominantly, or has not been predominantly, I should say. You know, for you coming in being, which is so powerful, the first Black woman to be president of a track, like, greatness awaits us over here. Awaits us. But it is powerful, though, because you are in such a unique space where there are so many young people, I don't even want to say girls, but young people are seeing someone that might look like them in a space they might not have before. And for you to be so self-aware and be like, I don't want to be just this. I want to be all of this. Asking those hard questions, because like, I'll be honest, I'm going into that meeting and I'm like, this is fucking cool. What can I not say to fuck this up? Seriously, I'm like, don't mess this up. You're like, nah, we're about to just gloves off, sit down, take your shoes off, get comfortable, because this is going to be important. But like, how did you come to that? Like, is that ingrained in you? Did you have to really think about it? Did that come from somebody in your family saying, make sure? Because that's not a common way to go in such a powerful position.
No, you're right. You know, I think that it's kind of like what we talked about earlier, is you come into the space of your life at some point. I don't know when it is, what age it is, but you know, you work so hard. I mean, I've been working since I was, when people talk about like, oh, I used to work at the bar, I used to work at a retail store, I've never experienced any of that. I went straight career, right? Like right away in a professional working environment. So I know for sure that a lot of that has to do with who I am and why I am the way I am. As you like watch people and their actions, the words that they say, and you know, like especially for like guys, they always advocate for themselves. And I've always been in a predominantly male space, always, right? That's just how my career has worked. And, you know, when women ask like, what is it like being with the guys? I don't know. That's all I know. So it's just part of who I am. And so perhaps some of it is that as well, like listening, and even the questions that I've gotten from, you know, the executive leaders over time as being an HR leader, like the things that people ask for, I'm like, damn, I would have never thought to ask for that, right? Totally. And so just because that's just innately who we are as women, right? We're always like, oh, I don't want to mess this up, or, you know.
We say that all the time. Like we constantly don't approach things in the way we probably in our gut feel like we should approach it.
Yes.
Because we're afraid of being too much or too extra or emotional or too one thing or the other. Where like, a male would be like, all right, what's the real shit?
Yeah.
Why can't I say the same thing?
Yeah, right. Right. So I feel like I can, and I do.
I'm about to channel you.
Right?
Every time I go into something, I'm be like, what would Latasha say right
seriously,
now?
like sometimes I do feel, and I mean, of course, we've gone to tons of leadership trainings. all these things, and all those things work. Please do not. I want people to know. Please always work on yourself, no matter what. Right? I have multiple degrees, all that kind of stuff. I'm always educating myself on something. Right? You have to learn. However, also learn from people. It's about relationships, right? And so as you build these relationships and you see these things that are going on, like it is okay. Again, if it's coming from your heart and it's coming from the right place, there really shouldn't be an issue with you advocating for yourself.
Did you have like a background in sports? Like what made you even want to get into NASCAR? Because when like we talked about, when you first think of NASCAR, you're kind of like, that seems so far out of the way. I don't ever think about it. It's like, what attracted you to the job in itself? Did you have that background in sports?
No background in working in sports. When I spent majority of my career at USAA, my team and I were responsible for all the sponsorships and partnerships. You know, living in Arizona, we have every sports team, which is a great thing.
Yeah, it's great.
We used to.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not anymore.
You're right.
Coyotes, bye-bye.
You're right, which is a sad thing.
Yeah. So sad, but you know what? New things await. So
like as people always say, one door closes, one opportunity shuts down, something else will come. Right, and it probably gives an opportunity for something else to come to our market as well. But no, I did not have any of that experience, and part of me on the inside was like, I don't know anything at the time, right. about NASCAR. So how am I going to learn, or what am I going to do in order to learn that? However, what I did know I had was everything else, right? I've been in leadership, I've been in positions for over 20 years. I am that community person that everyone is looking for. And so then when you also take into account, like, how can you, what kind of influence can you have on our fan base? Just knowing that all of those things, like I already had that. So it was just the other piece of really getting to learn NASCAR. And I said this earlier, but Julie really left Phoenix Raceway in a really, really good place. I wasn't walking into anything bad, to include having a phenomenal team. When you start in new places, like, you're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. And
we're tequila.
Right? Or you're not everybody's tequila.
We're tequila girls.
She said we're not your tea, but we're tequila.
Yeah.
So, pull on up.
Exactly. But, so I went in thinking, like, who knows? Half the people might walk out. You just have no idea. And so, like, what am I going to do in that situation? And I know how calm I am. And so I'm like, I can handle any of those things. So I wasn't worried about any of that. But I have all, my family's into sports. We just a sports family. That's all we do. Yeah. I mean, even during COVID, right? I mean, all we watch is sports. So during COVID, nobody's playing sports except when they're throwing bags, like the bags tournaments that they had.
Cornhole.
Cornhole.
Oh, cornhole.
So I'm like, why?
I was like, bags.
Yeah,
I'm like, are we wearing luggage? Like, we're talking about the guys. Like,
we're watching a cornhole tournament, but like they had their mask on, and like the father and son won the whole championship. But it was super cool because that's the only thing we had to watch. So being in sports has truly. I mean, I'm definitely will tell you, I did not say when I was 16 or when I was younger, I'm going to go be the president of Phoenix Raceway one day, right? That was definitely not on my list of things to do in my career. Honestly, when I started at ASU, I was going to be a news anchor and work on Good Morning America and live in New York and do all things fashion and be on the news. So that was my plan.
But you know what's so crazy, though, is she didn't grow up wanting to be the president of Phoenix Raceway. But because she is the president of Phoenix Raceway, there's some little girl or person that's looking at you saying, I want to be.
Yes.
Because I think one of the things that I've seen NASCAR do, and I want to get your perspective on it, is they are really trying to bridge the gap culturally between I call it the old and the new.
Yep.
There is the diehard old school fan base that has just grown with that sport and culture to the new faces that are, you have like Bubba Watson, you have some really amazing young drivers that are multicultural that are really leveling up the sport. Yeah. How have you taken that in Phoenix predominantly, but across NASCAR? What are the goals for NASCAR to kind of create a more culturally balanced fan base? Yeah. Or I wouldn't even say like accountability, but it's like the experiential side to get them other people there, because it is not, while it is a growing sport, it's also I call it an inherited sport.
Yeah, it's generational.
You grow, exactly. It's a generational sport. You grow up watching it, you experience it. Are you seeing a change in that? Are you seeing more people start to experience it for the first time because of what NASCAR is implementing, and what are they implementing?
Yeah, so I think a few things. So one, like you said, NASCAR is generational, right? So we have some of the most loyal fans within NASCAR. So we love our fans. Like you said, you have older fans, younger fans, and they become younger because like your grandparents are part of it. And, you know, when you have our campers, for those that don't know much about NASCAR, right, our campers come in usually the Monday before your race and then they leave
You've
the
got
Monday
to experience this.
Yeah.
We have talked about
What
that.
are campers?
No. I've been telling her we're coming. Like, literally, okay, in November, we're gonna go and just, you know, maybe me and you, we're gonna get a Her Table camper and we're gonna go camp.
Oh, like
It's
a
like a motorhome.
trailer?
Like a trailer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No.
It's
Don't
not
say
a trailer.
trailer.
It's
Trailer
a RV.
sounds, it's
it's
motorhome.
RV.
Oh, okay.
And to
Tour
be
bus.
hon-
Tour
to be-
bus. We're
Oh,
going
tour bus.
You hear us,
Say less.
production? Tour bus.
Yeah,
We're
to
going
be honest,
tour bus.
a lot of them are like really, really, really nice.
Oh,
Dude, they're
I see.
so
Okay.
nice.
Yeah,
It's like
yes.
a freaking house.
Yes. I mean, we have a partnership with Walmart. We create a grocery store out there for our
I'm
campers.
telling you, this shit is wild.
Yeah, and there's
wild.
thousands, and it's not like 500
Yeah.
campers. I mean, it's over 10,000 campers that
Wow.
are there, and it turns into a whole city, truly.
Oh my
So again,
goodness.
and that's just those are just the people that want to come for the week, right? Again, those diehard individuals that have been doing it for a really long time. That doesn't even include the people that are coming just for the weekend for the racing, right? We have racing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So like over a championship weekend last year, we had over 125,000 people. So it is massive. It's a massive production, and we have, again, like you said, generational fans, and we want those fans. We want to continue to have those fans. What we want to do is introduce other fans as well. But you cannot introduce other fans if you don't have things for your other fans to do, right? Or if you put them in a space to where they don't feel welcome or comfortable to be at that space, right? And so NASCAR has had a diversity program for over 20 years, just not something. It's Drive for Diversity. It's been existing. This isn't 2020 when George Floyd, everybody had, like when George Floyd happened, everybody's on their D&I stuff, right? No, NASCAR has actually been doing it for a really long time. So Drive for Diversity programs helps with like our pit crew members, helps with, to help get, individuals ready for that, helps for as well drivers themselves, interns, right? Making sure that we have interns of color and just other people, girls, all the things, right, that are part of NASCAR. So that has been going on for a really, really long time, just not something that has really been talked about.
Yeah.
So now what NASCAR is doing is hiring different leaders, right, like other leaders in these spaces. There's 4 women that lead raceways now as well. And so, you have other individuals that are in these markets, and you yourself have to create those environments. So when you just came to the race in March, one of the things that we did specifically in Phoenix is, we have one of the largest Hispanic Latin cultures in Arizona. Almost, 60% of our market is of Latin, right? And so, or Hispanic culture. And so I wanted to create a space where, hey, let's have a Viva La Fiesta zone, right? Where we have a partnership with individuals like Sophisticated Few who are doing lowriders, local food vendors that are specific to the culture. We had multiple musical performances. We had Lucha Libre. Wrestling is huge, right? We had all of these things.
Big.
Yeah. So we had all of these
cool.
things that we'd never had before at our raceway. And so those are the types of things that you have to do.
Yeah.
And then you talked a little bit about kids as well. We had our first STEM day during that week as well. We have so many activities that go on during the week. We had our first STEM day. We had almost 500 kids that came to the raceway from Title I schools. And, when you're at a Title I school, you're probably a kid of color. And so that's how that worked. And we had those kids there. And again, if you can see it, you can believe, you can be it, you can believe that there's something more than what's right in front of you. And so those are the types of things that just, we're doing holistically across NASCAR. Chicago, prime example. Yeah. Chicago is a market that NASCAR didn't exist prior to us going to the street race, and having a leader like Julie, someone there who firmly stands behind and believes all things NASCAR, but also her heart is just so open to opening it up, right, to others. And so that's why we do things like Chicago.
It's so crazy because, you look at where you are in your career and where you started at 16.
Yeah.
What's a skill set you wish you would have learned earlier?
Yeah.
Or one that you feel like you could have done without?
Yeah, I think a skill set that I feel like I could have learned earlier is probably that skill set of like authentically showing up as who I am and speaking up for myself. I can't say that I would have had like a conversation like I had with Steve Phelps and all the others, if I wouldn't have developed that. And again, I don't know where and when that happened, but it developed over time. When I was 16, I wasn't doing that, right?
No.
I mean, it came at some point, right? Like, over time. So, and I think that a skill set that I probably could be better at, that I don't feel like I've learned is this empathy piece, right? Like I'm empathetic to a certain
Really?
Yeah, I'm empathetic to a certain point, but when people make excuses, I'm like the I don't give a fuck comes out so fast. Like I don't say that, but my face does, right? And so
She's like, I'm just gonna look at you, and you can just interpret this
Yeah.
however you would like.
Yeah, and I think my expectations are really high, but you guys, everyone doesn't have the same work ethic, right? It's kind of like your kids, right? You have to treat them all differently. I'm really great at building relationships with people, and that's actually one of the most important things for my team is like really getting to know them and understand what makes them tick and what doesn't make them tick. But there comes a point to where you're like, all I'm hearing out of your mouth right now are excuses. And I can't relate. Like, I don't relate to like anything that's like lazy. Like, I don't relate to like, if you can't figure it out, right? And I'm not saying don't be resourceful because that's how you figure it out, right? But like, I can't answer all of your questions or make the decision for you. So
I think that's so special too for you, like saying don't make excuses because where you are today shows that you have never made excuses in your life. What kind of advice would you give like the young women who are looking to get into your world one day, or even just like looking at you and being like, I want to be a president of a NASCAR race or something like that?
Yeah, a few things I would tell them. One is you always have to build relationships, right? You have to set yourself apart. So for us as girls, right, like, and not just girls, young men, just in general, like what makes you different? Like what makes you stand out? Is it your work ethic, right? Is it how you show up to work every day? Do you come on time or do you come early, right? And so those types of things. Do you volunteer for projects? Like, do you, my job is to do X, but I would like to do like A, B, C, and D plus X, right? And like, what are you doing again to be different? And so I always say you have to do something to set yourself, out, but in the right way.
In the right way,
right?
yeah.
Because if you do not do that in the right way, you will definitely stand out.
Yeah,
and that's
it won't benefit you.
Yeah, it won't benefit you, right? Like it just won't. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing is do as much as you can. That's different. Like think outside the box always. I always say I've never been good at coloring. I've always colored outside the lines, right? Like I don't draw, like all those things. But I think that's okay, right? We're always taught 100%. Like, oh my God, you got to be so perfect. No, there's actually nothing perfect about me. Yeah. But the thing that I have that's really good is I'm going to figure it out. Yeah, how to make it work.
You have one of the guys we work with, Warren, says this about me. He's like, Kate has the I can get in the house mentality. Like, I don't care how, if you say get in the house, I don't care how I'm getting in, if it's through the roof, through the window, if I'm going to dig underground and get in, we're going to knock the door down. We got to break some walls here or there. Like, whatever. We're going to get in the house. It's kind of like you're in a room, get out, figure it out, go. I think that's one thing that's interesting because you have such a multifaceted career, right? And I think all of these tools, especially coming from human resources, which honestly might be one of the toughest jobs in the world. It's either the toughest job in the world or it's the easiest. And I just think it's the toughest because I love how she's like, I don't have any empathy, but I was in human resources for a long time. Like, okay.
Because you have to develop,
it's a craft. You have to learn how to deal with people.
And especially when you're in HR and you like fire people. Like in the beginning of my career. So when I was at Schwab, when I was really young, in my early 20s, and like I would be, part of the process of laying people off or terminating them. Like very early, then I had to learn that like I'm not the one firing them.
You're just a messenger.
They are firing themselves, right? There is a reason why they are not producing or they're not doing whatever. And that once they've gotten to that point in HR, there's a lot that has gone on.
There's a fire file. I call it the file.
There's a file, right? They've
gone
through, a pre-conversation, another conversation, a written warning, all of the things. So
you ended up here. This isn't a surprise. You knew that the road was leading you to me, and I just happened to be the little, gypsy behind the curtain that says, okay, the time has come.
Yeah.
But that's like a learned thing, though.
100%.
How do you feel like you've taken, we talked a lot about culture and NASCAR changing and evolving and growing. Do you feel like that's one of your biggest attributes that you bring to not only Phoenix Raceway, but the sport of NASCAR yourself, is your ability to engage with people, meet them on the level that they're on, but then bring them along with you?
Yes, 100%. That's probably like one of my biggest things. And so, I mean, I think that a few things. One, for me, it's been extremely humbling, like the amount of people that are now curious, right, about NASCAR because I'm there. It's like this factor that you have. Like when you're a good person and people want to be around you, they're like, I want to come, I want to come support you, but I want to see, like, what are you doing? Why are you there? Right? So it's just this very unique ability to have that. But then what about the people who I don't know and those fans that are generational, have been there forever? I'm doing everything in my power to get out there, talk to them. I go out. I've never in my life stayed in an RV, but I go out to the campground. I hang out with them.
You can stay in ours.
Yeah, but I am not kidding you. They have the most fun. That's like probably one of the best things I do during my week. I spend as much time as possible as I can in the campground because they are partying like rock stars every day, right? They are, but it's like a community, right? These people, they're coming from, let's say, you have somebody that came from California. We had some folks that came from Canada, but they like meet up every year at that time of year, and they know that they're going to come hang out with their homies at the at the camping area, right? And they've been doing it for years, and so it's like one of the coolest things. But I have to relate to them. I have to get on their level. I have to talk to them. I have to hear from them. So that would definitely be probably one of the biggest things for me that I feel like I've been the most successful at, is just building those relationships with the people that that are our fans.
Right, it's almost like the people you serve.
Yeah,
right? That's
100%.
That's really what it is.
I want to go. You're convinced me. Like, oh my gosh, this could be fun.
What has been for you one of the biggest challenges that you might have faced, whether it's now at NASCAR or previously, just throughout your career as a woman? Has there been a challenge you've kind of had to overcome? Being a woman in a predominantly male industry. I mean, finance is pretty male as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing is it's more like us, like more personal, right? Like with us, of like that balance. We don't have a balance. Like there's no such thing as work-life balance. Let's be really clear about that. Yeah. It's about prioritization, right? You have to prioritize the things that are important. And I think that that's like the biggest challenge. There'll be times, even right now today, right? I mean, I serve on, I've figured out how to say no, which that is very, very powerful. So I only serve now on 2 boards, but I'm taking on a board chair for the Valley of the Sun United Way. So it's going to take a lot of time. So I feel like there's these roller coasters of times where like you feel like you're doing really, really, really well, like outside of the house. Then you go home and you're like, shit, my kid just got kicked out of school today, right? Like, so you just feel like
we have no groceries. There's no laundry done. The trash is piling up. I have nothing clean to wear, and there's no gas in the car.
Right.
So yeah,
all of those things, right? And so I just feel like you can be doing so good here, then you get home, or vice versa, right? Like everything is so perfect at home, and then you get out into the work day, and you're like, okay, well, 5 people just quit. Right? It's just like this really hard balance. Like, and I think that we're just so hard on ourselves as women. Sometimes we have to give ourselves grace. Right? I mean, we talked about birthdays, and honestly, this week, we're on the road all the time. Like, we're always doing something, right? And so, my family, everyone's like, oh, hey, do you want to go to dinner on your birthday? Or like, what are we gonna do? Right? Well, what's the turn up for your birthday? I'm like, I'm turning the fuck down. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything.
I'm gonna be at my house in my sweatpants.
Yeah, I went and got a massage.
I was not expecting that. So I'm laughing.
And I did nothing, because sometimes we just need to do that, right? Like, you gotta chill and just like do nothing.
Relax.
Yeah. Yes.
Relax.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
What is the most rewarding part of your job?
Yeah. I feel like there's so many rewarding, things in my job. I think to be able to, one, come in and have created Phoenix Raceway. I've only been there a year and a half, but our culture is just so great, right? I mean, you see a lot of Jordans every day. I really want people to be able to authentically show up as who they are. And so my team we've been having fun. I tell them all the time, if you are not having fun, our fans will not have fun. So we have to figure out, how to do that. So my team is probably one of the most rewarding things, but as well, something that you mentioned mentioned earlier is just all of the community work that we've been able to collectively do together at the raceway and bringing people who've never been before. Representation matters for any little girl to be able to not just see what's right in front of them, right? To be able to see something different. Now it opens up their mind. I mean, these field trip programs that we have, they'll remember that for a lifetime. Even if they don't work for NASCAR or they don't work in sports, they will remember like, wow, this is something that I would have never experienced. And maybe later in their life, they'll become a fan or whatever that may have done for them. It presented them an opportunity they would have never had.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Really What's been for you? What's next for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're newly into this, a year and a half, but like, where do you see your role, hopefully in NASCAR growing? Or, I mean, quite frankly, if I'm being really honest with myself, you are the perfect person. NASCAR is going to kill me for this to be like cherry picked to put somewhere else because you're creating what I call, a workplace culture. I've seen a lot of places that have a great work experience, but they lack culture. And people don't stay there.
Yeah.
People don't want to work there. Right. And then it's thriving, but then it blows up because it all just blows up on itself. What for you is your 10-year plan?
Yeah. I don't know. Because I will tell you that
she's like, get through today and this weekend in Vegas.
Day by day, minute by minute. Day. I don't know what that is. I mean, I am like you said, it's been a year and a half. I'm having a phenomenal time at NASCAR, and there's so much for me to do at NASCAR. And so I don't know. 10 years from now, perhaps I don't know. What that looks like. I mean, track presidents do stay in their role for quite some time because the reality is like, where do you go next? Yeah. From there, I'm an Arizona girl, so I plan to stay in Arizona for quite some time. So I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. But the one thing that I always say is like you continue every day to prepare for whatever is next and you never have to get ready for your next opportunity, right? Yes. And so which is what happened to me here when JG reached out. Yep. I knew I had all the questions, right? And we go through the syndrome, right? Of like, could I do this? Yeah. What am I doing here? Yes. Right? All of those things. But the reality is yes, because everything that I've been doing has prepared me to where I am today. And I will continue to do that while I'm in this NASCAR president role. I'll continue to do as much as I can to make it great for whoever is next and whatever is next for me.
Did you ever go through that? I want you to touch on it because I think a lot of times people forget how hard it is to make such a pivotal shift in your career. Yeah. One that was a hard right turn from where you had been theoretically by name only, not by culture or circumstance. Yeah. Did you doubt yourself? Did you have some I need to pray about it moments and sleep on it and maybe tomorrow I'll wake up feeling differently? Or was it like a hard yes?
Oh, no, it was definitely not a hard yes. 100%. I still, some days I'm like, when I'm asked to do something, like I was asked for next week to do it. I think you and I talked about this before, to do a commencement speech at ASU. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, who, me? Yeah. Like, what am I going to talk about to these kids? So every day.
Meanwhile, you went to ASU, so you're like a new product child of the school. The school's
honored.
Like cheering you on. Oops. And you're, look, they're all excited from here. They're all excited from here.
I'm so excited. But yeah, so yes, the reality is I do definitely have the syndrome. You can't let it take over, because if you do, then you will be in a position to where people are like, oh, you don't, you stay the same. Yeah. But no, this was not a hard yes. So you definitely had to, pray about everything. But honestly, as my husband, who when Julie called originally, I was like, I am not doing that. That is crazy. And my husband was like, why would you close the door on the opportunity before you even asked a question, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you would never encourage anyone else to do that. And you've never done that with anything else. So he was like, why was it a hard no? I'm like, well, first of all, I'm happy in doing what I'm doing. And I wasn't like thinking about a new career. I was looking for a new opportunity. And he's like, so what?
But what he said to you is so true. Because if someone came to you in the exact same scenario, you, Latasha Causey, would be like, explain it to me. Tell me why. 100%. But you didn't do that for yourself.
I didn't.
And I feel like as women, so often we do that internal, it's not validation. What's the opposite? Sabotage. Yeah. It's like internal sabotage of like, no. And you plant those seeds. No one's saying to you what they're going to offer to you, but are you sure?
Right.
It's like your own internal. And you're like, hello, why? Don't get it.
Yeah, like, what are you thinking?
Totally. But what he said to you is so important because that is how we should look at it. If we wouldn't give this advice to someone else, why are we giving ourselves this advice?
Why are you doing that to yourself? Right? I'm so logical. I hate when he's right. And I definitely hate when the logic kicks in. Like, fuck, because I'm also so logical.
Like, thank you.
Dang it.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was right.
But that's so
but it's
cool
the truth, though.
because you not often do you have somebody that will lean and push back on you.
That's right.
And be like, what you're saying is right.
Yeah.
But there's more.
Yeah.
There's more. Because I think especially as women, it's like you said, imposter syndrome. We talk about it a lot on the show of like, am I supposed to be here?
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, if it's not me, then who?
Yeah.
Right? So convince me why it's not me.
Yeah.
But like showing young women, young people.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes a lot of young people are like, I just want to go straight to the top.
Yep. That's
Well,
the truth.
honey bunny, you got to start at the bottom. You got to get up the ladder, fall off the ladder,
At least a
carry
couple
it back
times.
up,
Yep.
start over, just lose the ladder for a solid 2 years, and then you find it again. And then you start over again. Like, it's not a perfect path. There are people that have the perfect path, but I think majority of people don't. And
That's the
that's
truth.
what I have found in the show, and we talk about it a lot. The people that have found their purpose while walking their path is so powerful.
I agree.
Because just walking your path isn't going to get you where you want to go. You got to find what fuels you.
Yeah.
And it might come to you in a way you might not expect. Like you were in HR.
Yeah.
But you are literally serving HR right now
Yeah.
at NASCAR because you are serving the people and the culture and the fan base of NASCAR.
That's right.
Same thing, just on a dummy scale. There's not like 30 people in your office. Just like, all the people and you're like, okay, we're not going to fight on row 5. Over here at campgrounds, y'all need to get your ish together.
Get it together.
If you want to come back next year, we're going to need you to hold it together.
Yes.
And then y'all over here, I'll see you at 5. Yeah.
You know the crazy thing is you mentioned that, but like it's like a week-long tailgate, right? But our fans get along so well because it's like a family. It's the weirdest thing. Even when they're going, like their drivers are going against each other, right? And crashing and all those things, right?
Yeah.
They're still friends at the end of the day, which is so crazy, which it's a little different and like
NBA. Oh, yeah. People be fighting.
Fighting players and everything, right? They always have stuff to say.
yeah.
So I want to touch on one thing before we wrap this up that's so important to me is the experience that NASCAR has crafted is unlike any other sport.
Yes.
Like hands down, you are not going to be able to take pictures with any NBA player, NFL player, NHL player 35 seconds before the game starts.
No.
And you have fans that are diehard generational fans that have whatever access level of fun that they can get to have that experience. Why is that so important for you at Phoenix Raceway?
Yeah, well, that is NASCAR, right? That is our experience. That is the thing that sold me on NASCAR 4 years ago when I went to my first race. I told you it was presidential, but the reality is that's NASCAR, right? The adrenaline, all the things that you feel. Our it wasn't just me having VIP Julie's access. No, we actually have the opportunity for our fans to be down on the grid, in the pits, all of those things, like you said, right before your favorite driver gets into his car, right? You can actually talk to him, do all of those types of things, right? You could take photos, all that. I was just in Talladega last weekend. And so as I was down there, not only do you have like your favorite drivers, but you have owners. So Michael Jordan was there. Yeah. He was right down there, right where all of the fans were. People, were asking to take photos, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's just such an open environment of like, hey, if you're coming to our experience, we're really going to let you experience it in the best way possible. And like I said, like you said, you go sit courtside, you are not getting a high five or a pound from Devin Booker. And if you try, like Mike's coming in to like snatch you up, right? Like there's security will be there in about 5 seconds, right? Yeah. Same thing when you're on the field for, the Cardinals games, right? You can only go to a certain, the roped off area, right? That's as far as you're going. You're not going down the sideline to pat your favorite football player on the butt like everyone else. Right? It's not gonna happen, right?
No.
So I mean, it's just different. You're not patting a driver on the butt either, but you get the point, right?
She's like, don't come to my track and do that.
Don't do that, please.
You'll get thrown out. I'm not dealing with that. They're like, well, Latasha told me that I could.
I didn't. I said you could give them a high five, but that's the reality, right? Is that there's the experience is just so different and unlike any other. Truly, we really want our fans to be able to get in. our home is their home. And so if you have the experience, it's there for you. And our team does everything that they can to curate that. So, when March was over, we're already working on next March to figure out what we're going to do for March, right? Last November, we were working on our race for this November for that reason, to make sure we give the best possible experience to our fans.
Amazing. Okay, I have one last question, and it's really important before production comes for me one more time. I love you guys. You're obviously a female in a sport that is 98% men. Mm-hmm. When you go into those drivers' meetings, what do you feel like has been your success as having them show up and respect you in the leadership position that you're in when they are multi-million-dollar athletes and you are the top of the top for them when they show up at Phoenix Raceway?
Yeah, it's all about relationships, right? So that is one thing that I was really intentional about when I started at NASCAR, because there's so many people, right? There's so many people as part of NASCAR, as part of sports teams. I really wanted to get out there, and so that means I was on my first quarter of my first year of being there. I was on the road more than I was home, for the reason of getting out there so that they could get to know me, they can understand who I am, they can understand who I am as the leader of Phoenix Raceway, and that's what makes them respect you, right? Before I have a race, I mean, one of the biggest drivers in NASCAR history, Jeff Gordon, is sending me a text to say, hey, thinking about you this weekend. Let me know if you need anything. Those are the types of relationships I go to them because I don't know everything, right? And I know I don't know everything. Right. So I went and toured a few track teams, like Trackhouse. I went to Hendrick Motorsports and really got like behind the scenes so that I can understand from a driver's perspective, a team perspective, like what's important for all of you. That's how they respect you. That's one of the things that Julie is really great at as well is, hey, we are vulnerable enough to be able to say, I know Phoenix Raceway, but I don't know Phoenix Raceway as a driver, right? I don't know Phoenix Raceway as a team owner, right? So I need to be able to go to you in your element and understand, hey, I'm asking as many questions, but I'm also giving you the opportunity to ask me questions as well, and tell me, like, say something. If it's not right, you don't feel right, we're missing something, tell us, and we go from there.
I love that. Well, I've loved having you on. Thank you so much for sharing your birthday with us here at Her Table.
Thank you for
Keep being amazing. Keep doing amazing things. We're coming. Her Table Motorhome is coming November.
Yes.
Everyone wants to know. We'll save
there.
us the camping spot. Yeah. We might need a couple just to like bring our friends along.
Yes.
And then you can come down. Just put us on the good. It's like a street. She'll know what street to put us on. Just don't lose us.
Don't lose you. I'll tell you what though. Like I said, our campers are so loyal. They sell out like that. So we're probably.
Well, I mean, we know somebody.
Yeah, we know somebody.
I mean, we know somebody, right?
You might know someone that knows someone.
Yeah, I mean, we might know someone that knows someone that knows someone that like we could get there.
Yes.
But at least just hold us one spot.
Listen, I have definitely enjoyed this and really seriously what you all are doing with Her Table and all the amazing women that you've had on. It's just an amazing thing. We as women have to continue to do things like this and share our stories. Yes. So I can't wait for you guys to come back to Phoenix Raceway, and then I'm going to come support you all and all the awesomeness that you're doing.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, Kate, I've heard such great things about Latasha. And not only did she meet expectations, but she exceeded them. She was amazing.
I told you, she's a good energy. She's a vibe. She's a whole vibe in herself.
She is a vibe. I was just really cool getting to know her journey and how she started in working in finance and how she's now worked at NASCAR as a president of the Phoenix Raceway. That is such a big deal. And it was just awesome hearing her story.
It's really fascinating to me how you can be in HR and you can work at a banking system, and then now you're the president of Phoenix Raceway. But had she not been so successful in her role prior to that, I don't know that she would have enough to do what she needs to do, and so many firsts that she's achieving, not only for NASCAR, but for Phoenix Raceway. So it's just a testament to follow your path, find your purpose, and creating culture and people and experience is really what she is. Like she and herself is a vibe, but she wants to create a vibe for everybody she's around.
For sure.
And the community that she impacts. And to hear her say like she serves NASCAR fans, it speaks a lot to like what Julie said, right? Which is like your consumer, your fan base is what serves and what drives your business. And she really took that to heart, and seeing just how ingrained she is in the community and bringing new faces, new people into experiences they might not have had before. I mean, it's inspiring to watch and listen.
It really is. And you can tell how she's really good with people. She's a big relationship person. And that was her advice to our younger audience, is just to create those relationships, network, go to those leadership conferences, gain that experience at a young age. And I think, you know, for our listeners to hear that and see where she started and where she is today is just such an incredible thing. And I just loved having her on the show. And I really want to go to Phoenix and experience NASCAR firsthand.
I know. I'm only going if she'll stay in our camper with us.
Please.
A motorhome. I think we need a tour bus. I think camper makes it not sound like what we need. I think we're a tour bus.
Tour bus?
The Her Table tour bus needs to stop at NASCAR. For sure. But you know what? I'm just so proud of also the way she handled that hiring process, because I think I look at myself and I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is a big promotion. This is a big opportunity. And she really took a step back and said, like, hey, is this the right fit for me? Am I the right fit for you? Because she told a lot of people and a lot of men, I am going to show up myself. If that's a problem, raise your hand now. And I don't have the confidence to do that, but I'm going to channel her when I need to and say that's the confidence that I need to have when I do that.
Absolutely.
Because it's such a healthy way to look at things instead of like, oh, am I good enough for this? It's kind of like, well, is this good enough for me? And when you're at those monumental places in your career, I think you do have to take a step back and reflect. So like I'm totally taking that away from me and my career of like, okay, I might be good for you, but are you good for me?
Yeah.
And that's a new way to look at things.
Yeah, it is. And just the fact that she was open to experiencing that challenge, taking a whole right turn, like we said, and starting a whole different career. And I love that for her.
No, she's changing the culture. She's got one more fan in Megan.
Oh, for sure.
We're sure going to have some more fans after this show. But thank you guys so much for watching, tuning in. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. Let us know if there's somebody we need to have on the show. We appreciate you. We love you. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for Her Table. We'll see you guys next week.